What secrets can hide in plain sight? When a book of shadows leads to a mysterious New Age store, my quest for answers takes an unsettling turn. The following is a true story of curiosity and the chilling realization that sometimes you're the one being watched. A few days had passed since learning about the Coven of Witches. Chris, Dan, and I were hanging out, and I told them about it. Chris mentioned that he saw a book of shadows at a used bookstore. I asked what was in it, and he said just blank pages. I did not believe him, so I asked him to take me to the store. There it was, just like he said. A black book with the words Book of Shadows in gold font. The pages inside were completely blank. Now, at this point in my life, I had watched plenty of horror films, and my imagination was running wild. I was convinced that these pages had something written on them, but it required some special spell in order to reveal them. Yes, I was an idiot. However, that didn't stop me from pursuing this quest, so I purchased the book. A week or two later, Dan had mentioned there was a New Age type store he saw downtown and wanted to visit. I thought for sure if anyone knew what a Book of Shadows was, it would be them. The three of us drove to the store to check it out. It was just like what I had imagined the store would look like. It was slightly dim, filled with the smell of incense, and the three women that worked there were dressed in all black. I walked away from Chris and Dan to go look at the books that were on the shelves of a wall that had been accentuated by a spotlight. Like a moth to a flame, it caught my attention. The books on the wall were all related to crystals, meditation, Wicca, and other New Age topics. I noticed there was soft, calming music playing nearby as well. One of the employees came over to ask if there was something she could help me with. I told her I had found a book of shadows and wanted to know if she knew what it was. She said, "No, but let me ask some of the others. They may know." I continued to look at the books. I had completely forgotten about Chris and Dan at this point. Suddenly and out of nowhere, I hear a deep voice. "How can I help you?" I spun around to see a man about 6 feet tall, dressed in black, with straight, jet black hair longer than most women. He caught me off guard as I hadn't seen him when I entered the store. I mentioned the Book of Shadows and asked if he had ever seen one or knew what it was. He asked what was in it, and I told him the pages were blank. He said that some people would use it like a journal. I waited for him to follow up by asking to see it or telling me that the entries in the book were written in invisible ink or something, but nothing at all. He was either hiding the secret knowledge from me that would reveal the hidden entries in the journal, or I was just an idiot with an incredible imagination, which was the case. Defeated, I continued to look around the store. In the back, there was a long jewelry case. I had never seen jewelry like that in my life. All sorts of rings, bracelets, and necklaces with pendants with different stones, crystals, and symbols that looked witchcraft related. Watching me look in awe at all the jewelry, one of the women approached me from behind the counter to ask if I wanted to look at anything. As I looked up to tell her I was just looking, I noticed there were stairs behind her that had black curtains pulled to conceal the entrance and a sign that read, "Special Library." I knew it. They were hiding something. She saw me notice the sign, but didn't say anything. I decided not to ask because it was at this moment that I realized I was in over my head. I continued to look at the jewelry until I heard Dan say they were leaving as they walked out the door. I thanked the ladies that were assisting me and headed out the door. It was then that Chris and Dan asked what I stole. I looked in disbelief and said, "Nothing. I didn't steal anything." I was offended. "Why would you even ask me that?" They told me that when I was in the back looking at the jewelry, all 4 of the shop workers had surrounded me to the point that they were completely ignoring Chris and Dan. I was oblivious and had no idea this was going on. Chris and Dan thought I had stolen something and was about to get caught. That's why they got my attention by announcing they were leaving. Again, I was in shock. How could I have been so distracted that I let people surround me? I never did figure out what was really going on with those employees, or what might have been hidden in that special library. Looking back, the girls were nice enough, and the guy, though a bit arrogant, wasn't outright rude. But the whole situation, it still feels abnormal. It's a strange little piece of my past, a reminder that sometimes your imagination can lead you to some very real and very weird situations. Needless to say, I never went back.